Hey guys, Dewey back here. So what we're gonna do today is reconnect the wires that we cut for the Y-axis to make the wires fit through the holes. Here's one of them that I cut. The wire's already spliced in, has the heat shrink on it. This is for the Y switch. There. So the first thing we're going to do, it's going to be these two wires here. These four are for the stepper motor. These two are for the switch. We're just going to reconnect the housing to it. Alright, now we're just going to shrink the heat shrink onto it to protect it. Now we just do the stepper motor wires. I'm going to do the red to red. Heat shrinks are already on there. Blue to blue. Yellow to yellow. And green to green. It's just basically reconnecting the wires. Simple. So let's solder it back there. Now just put the heat shrink on and we should be done. Now that that's done, what we're going to do is I'm just going to solder the tip of these. This is for the hotbed, and these will go directly into the screw terminal over here. I'll show you which terminal. So I'm just going to put a little bit of solder on it just to help it from not de-threading. For these are going to be polarized pin connector. That's for the thermistor for the hotbed. So in the bag that was in the transformer box, you'll have the 2 pin housing and 2 polarized pins. So we're just going to add that to the wire and make the connection. it's in place. This is done, this is done, this is done. All these wires are done. And let's do the power, the DC power thing here. Plug in. So the one that's positive leads directly to the middle pin inside of this adapter here. And you know, if worse comes to worse, what you could do is just plug the transformer into it and check the leads to see if it's negative or positive. Just gonna go ahead and connect these two wires. This wire, the wire you use for this is gonna have to be able to handle 12 amps. Because we're using, if it's with the hotbed, you need at least 12 amps. So this wire is probably about, I'm not sure what gauge it is exactly, but it's just a little bit thicker than this the wire for the heating pad. But if you have, you know, the same gauge as this heating pad wire here to power the heating pad, that should be more than enough for you. Nothing too thick that's needed. So I'm just going to solder these on and put the heat shrink over it. I think you need to be careful with this one too, because you don't want it to get too hot, so the plastic on the adapter there would melt on you. So I have the wires in like that. I'm just going to keep a couple spots of solder on there. I'm just going to pull the heat shrink down and heat shrink, get it all down. So this is what I had. We soldered the negative and positive to the, it's just not focusing. Soldered the negative and positive to the ends of the adapter switch there. That's where your transformer will plug into for the power supply. I'm just going to put another piece of heat shrink over it. If you don't have heat shrink, you can just go ahead and use electrical tape. No big deal. This is what I have. So this would actually go right next to these hose connector here. If you can see it, it'll go on this hole right here. Yeah, I'm gonna just put it in for now, but I think we're gonna want to make all the connections for these switches first, or the motors and the switches and these wires here. Make the connections before we tighten this down, but I'm just gonna do that for now. And I think everything is ready to fully connect. For the momentary switch, what I was thinking about, it was supposed to be a momentary switch that belongs right here, right on top of the USB port. But since we have a fan running, the pins that I'm going to put it on, it's going to be these two pins. I'll disclose that later. It's going to be, the fan will always turn on when the motherboard has a power supply. So my thing is to, instead of adding the push button switch for the reset button on the board, I'm going to add just a turn it on off switch to cut the power supply to the board. So that way we could just, turn on and off the machine to give it power or no power. You could actually do both if you want. Either or, you could do the switch or the reset switch for the motherboard, or you could do both. So if you were going to do both, you could just drill another hole over here or another hole over here, and then just put in both. Not a big deal. So as of right now, I'm not going to do anything, but most likely I'm going to probably use this switch here. The next thing we're going to do is the resistor and thermistor for the hothead. Let's push this back here and move this forward. This is for the thermistor here. I'm just going to strip the wires. It's already stripped for me. I'm going to put some heat shrink on it. You know what I'm going to do? Yeah, I'm going to put some heat shrink on it first for this one. Just bear with me here. What's this? Alright. Use this as the table. Let me zoom in so you guys can see here. Is going to be over here. Okay. So I'm just going to connect polarity, doesn't matter on these. And put the heat shrink on. So we have the one end. Now let's do the other end. Let's give it a little bit of solder. You guys can see it. Let's put it over here more. Let me just move the whole machine. That's good. That's good. Now we're just going to put the heat shrink over it. One's in. Cut the tip of this off because the solder is too thick up there. Okay. Now Now we're going to do the resistor for it. I'm just going to mix up some It's JB Weld that dries in 5 minutes to cure. It's called JB Quick. If you don't have that, there's other adhesive or epoxy that you can use in place of the JB Weld that I'm using. You could also use Kapton tape to hold everything down. For some reason I can't find my here's one. And where's the other one? Here's the other one. Alright, so I just have a little piece of cardboard. I'm going to mix up the epoxy for the JB Quick. Let's do the resistor first. Resistor wires, we're going to need some heat shrinks on that. Better hurry up before this dries out. This is not going to be the heat shrink I want. Let's just try this one. I'm just going to run this up the wire. Let's put some of this JB Weld on this resistor, just a little bit around it. And let's just put it through the resistor hole here, just like that. You know what, I'm going to let this dry first, and then we'll go ahead and make the connection for it. But also I'm going to put the mister in place also. I'm going to put a little bit of this JB Weld stuff. And there's just a little hole here where the resistor goes. And it just sticks like that. So I'm going to give it 5 minutes, let it all dry, and we'll come back to solder the resistor. Alright, now that the resistor is cured, the JB Weld for the resistor is cured, I'm just going to solder these wires to it, the leads to it. There's no polarity to it, so it doesn't really matter which wire goes where. Just strip these a little bit more. Going to kind of twist it around this wire here, just like that. Just put that in place. Good. And now twist this other one around the resistor wire. You don't want to bend these resistor wires too much. You don't want it to break off on you. Now just put the heat shrink on. And shrink the heat shrink. just going to push this back here like that. Keep that like that. And let's pull these wires down so you get rid of the extra slack. This is like the mister here. Put the yellow one first. Let's put the white one. Now for the hothead, let's put the yellow one. Bring this up to the chin. Now let's do the black one. And there we go, our hothead is done. Resistor, the mister in place, and get rid of this. Now we're going to do the board. Of course, when you do the board, you're going to want it to put it in position first. You guys can see it here. You're going to want it to put it in here first. In its spot first. These are held into the frame with 440 screws, 1/4 inch 440 screws, and 440 standard nuts. So 4 of them. And yeah, you're gonna put the board in first and then make all the connections. But just so you guys can see, I'm gonna make the connections out here so you guys can see a little bit better. It's not gonna work. Let's zoom in here. Alright. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna connect the stepper motors. The stepper motor, it's gonna be extruder, the geared extruder motor, the Z stepper motor, the Y stepper motor, and the X stepper motor. So X, Y, Z, and E. So here's our Z, as I labeled, will be right here. Extruder will be right over here, the last one. This is the Y. The Y will be right here. The X will be the last one over here. Again, we have X, Y, Z, and extruder. Next thing is going to be the switch for the X. It's going to be these three back here. The switch for the X is going to be the closest one to the USB port. And then in order, that's X, and then the next one is going to be Y, which this is the Y one here. I didn't label it, but I could tell because I just reconnected it with the heat shrink, because that's the one we had to cut. And then the next one is the Z, X, Y, Z. So from the USB port, it's going to be X, Y, and Z, and these three back pins here. Here it is, the Z. And that's why I said to put this DC adapter thing here. And afterwards, you put make the connections. That way, this thing is not blocking the housing here to go in place. And after that, you could just screw this back in place like that. I'm not going to do that now because I'm going to have to put all this in there. I'm just doing this so you guys can see it. And then we have over here is our hotbed. Is it a hotbed? No, it's not a hotbed. This is nothing. So let's do the thermistor. Let's get rid of some wires here. This is for our thermistor. thermistor for the hotbed, which is the first one here, closest to this backing. So this is for the thermistor for the hotbed, and this one here is the thermistor for the hothead, which is right here. Is the 2 pins one. I'll try to get the camera afterwards and show you the connections. After that, we have our power. So if this thing was in there, the negative wire will be the closest. It's going to be the first screw terminal here, closest to the USB port. That's going to be for our power source. The closest one to the USB port is going to be negative. The second one is going to be positive. So let's get a flat head here. So I'm just gonna untighten these screws here. Negative first. And then the positive. Just screw it back in to tighten it. And then we have our oh, you know what? This is for the resistor. This little portion over here. Yeah, this is for the resistor. And the hotbed, polarities don't matter, goes in this second screw terminal here. So I'm just going to loosen it up, both screws, and just put the leads in there. Tighten that, and I gotta cut this. There's a little bit of solder on the tip there. Too much solder. Tighten that. This pin, this is for the fan. It goes to one of these pins back here. I'm not sure which one right now, but I'll let you guys know when I release the document to show you where everything goes. But let me grab the camera so I can show you closer. So this is the power source goes into here. The negative one on the far right, closest to the USB port. Positive here. This is for the hotbed, to power the hotbed. Polarities don't matter. Hothead resistor goes right here. This is X motor, Y motor, Z motor, extruder motor. This here is for our thermistor for the hothead. The second one here in red and black that you see, that's for the thermistor for the hotbed. Back here we have our X switch, stop switch, the momentary switch, the X, Y, and Z. X closest to the USB port, Y the middle one, and then Z the last one over here. And that's what it should look like. And this is our power, which is connected there, which we would just put in this hole over here. I'm trying to do it with the one hand here. Put in that hole. We're going to tighten it down with that. There's the washer there, and there's the screw down there. We're going to tighten that down. That way when we plug it in, it's going to bring the power to this screw terminal here. So that's it. Next thing we're going to do is calibrating the machine.